I remember well one evening at a lower court, a flight from the United Kingdom landed, and there was much discussion about where the Trinidadians who were on that flight would go. I had a press briefing just about 6:30 that evening, and I was asked by a reporter about what we were going to do with the Trinidadians who were on the flight. By that time, it had become apparent that they could not travel on to Trinidad and Tobago. My response, Mr. Speaker, was simple. There were human beings on the flight, and we were not going to leave them at the airport. In other words, we were going to treat to them as we would treat to any other human being, or as we would have wanted to be treated as human beings. Barbados is a society that has developed over time, that is still developing. It is a society that recognizes the humanity of people. It is a society that practically, but some may say theoretically, has been built on being our brothers and sisters' keeper. It has been built on the golden rule, treating people as we ourselves would want to be treated. It is also a society that understands that I may not agree with you, but we can respect each other even as we disagree. And so, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the matter of the 12-month Barbados Welcome Stamp, I want to reiterate that this initiative to be put into effect more fully by the passage of this bill is one that is of strategic importance to the country. It is of importance to ensure that our people can survive. It is of importance because it also allows for some transfer of knowledge between those who will take advantage of this opportunity and come to Barbados and Barbadians generally. We expect that in the intermingling that the Honourable Member for St. James South spoke to, St. James Central, spoke to, that in that interaction, there will be the transfer of knowledge. We are inviting people to enjoy the country that we have made for ourselves to enjoy. So we have not built out good internet service for these visitors. We've built out good internet services for us. We've built the internet service that persons who take advantage of this 12-month Barbados Welcome Stamp will enjoy is an infrastructure that is in place for us. We are inviting persons from outside of Barbados to come to Barbados, to share what we have, to share our lifestyle, to learn from us, to work from here, to intermingle and to do all the things that the Honourable Minister of Tourism spoke to earlier. Hiring the cars, going in the shops, going into the bars, spending money. But they're coming here to enjoy what we have created for ourselves. This program, Mr. Speaker, is one that, by its nature, demands my full support. It is a good program. It is visionary. It is strategic. It is also necessary. And I want to commend this bill to this honorable chamber and to commend it to the world and to ask that as fellow citizens of the world, we embrace those who come to share with us on a long-term basis, just as we embrace those who come to share with us on a short-term basis. Together, we will get ourselves out of the mess that the world finds itself in, and we will all be the stronger for it as we allow safe people to do safe work in a safe country. I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member for St. Michael West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just to briefly contribute to the discussion on the matter being given attention to by us at this time. We have had occasion to be present, frequently so, when matters were brought before this House for urgent attention and even urgent passage. And there have been many occasions when we appreciated the hurry, the haste, the urgency. I do recall, and you would, sir, the honourable member for St. Michael North, bringing several pieces of legislation to this House and asking the indulgence of the House for quick passage because of the urgent necessity attaching to those matters at that time. And the fact that impacted upon our standing in the eyes of the global community with respect to some of the premier institutions that influence policy in Barbados, whether we like it sometimes or not. And we're pleased to cooperate, comfortable in complying and accepting that there was an urgency. I don't know that the urgency in this case has been established. I do understand the context in which it is being brought. I do understand some of the reasons as to why this is thought to be prudent policy at this time, or prudent policy initiative at this time. But I don't think that anyone has attempted to or clearly establish why so urgent a matter is this that we have to pass this bill today in all of its phases, consider it in all of its phases and stages, and pass it this once. I'm uncomfortable with the haste, the rush. To me, is a matter of significant question, and I have to raise that. You get the impression that this is a construct that was given vent to somewhere in some moment by someone, that it was considered prudent by the government of Barbados, that hasty consideration, a week and a half, I heard 10 days, 14 at most, for contemplation of it, conceptualization of it, and even the drafting and it arriving here. And Mr. Speaker, if that's the case, one wonders the degree of inquiry, of research that may have been attendant upon the matter. And we do know that sometimes circumstances do not afford us the opportunity of a long and drawn-out process of research, an extended process of research. But one wonders if at all any serious, significant study has been given to this beyond the thought of somebody that this seems like a good idea. Let's get a jump on it before some of our competitors do. Barbados is facing some dire economic straits, and we need this, so let's get this to Parliament in a hurry. Now, question has to be asked as to who we're really targeting with this. We're non-nationals of Barbados who are possessed of a certain measure of wherewithal, financially, and who can get past some rather simple queries as to their good standing at home and in the world. And that essentially that is what qualifies them to be able to come here to work for a 12-month period and for a small fee. Now, my concerns increase having heard the contribution of the last member. There is entailed in this bill a definition of family that talks of partners. The comments of the last honorable member who spoke disturbed me because he seemed to be signaling very clearly that this bill anticipates, contemplates inviting and giving approval to a presence for this purpose as stated in the bill here, persons who are constituting families, the construct of which or construction of which is not legal in Barbados or under Barbados law. Now, I heard that just now. I have to admit, and I don't want to anticipate what is coming when we discuss the bill with reference to anti-discrimination re-employment. I thought it would emerge from that debate because it is more clearly indicated there. But I did hear the honorable member of St. Peter indicate that we should throw out a welcome mat to families constituted in a way that's not lawful in Barbados terms. And if that is where we're going, say that very clearly. So not only the world might understand, but that Barbados may understand that we expect husbands and wives to come. We expect husbands and dependents to come. But the construct of family as intended under this legislation will also see us open our doors to males who form peers in that social context, to females who form peers, who form peers in that social context. If we want to go that route as a government, we must tell the people of Barbados that this is part and parcel of that which we are discussing and intending to pass today. If I am wrong and that is not the case, tell Joseph Hadley that that is not the case. And when you tell him so, let the rest of Barbados hear you tell him so. Now one wonders as to the numbers that we anticipate this legislation, if passed, will attract to Barbados in any given year. I have heard a lot of optimism expressed. I have heard repeated references to universal interest in this, what is characterized by some as this novel idea, but no clear indication as to what really do we expect in terms of the numbers of people who will be coming to these shores, whether or not they're going to arrive here in floods or torrents or both. And it would be good if those who would have spoken to this, and I was really, Mr. Speaker, waiting to hear from the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs who has responsibility for immigration, the member of St. James North. I really was hoping to hear him speak such that I would not have to raise some of these questions if he would in advance provide the answers. It certainly would arise in the average person's mind. The source countries for this, well, the Honorable Prime Minister says we will welcome all without discrimination. Now, I understood that when the Honorable Prime Minister spoke, the member of St. Michael Northeast, to be a reference to discrimination on the basis of race and ethnicity and that type of thing. Since the Honorable Member of St. Peter has spoken, I wonder if I should have a wider understanding of what that anti-discriminatory position is supposed to be about. But one wonders the source countries that we hope to tap into for this influx of tourists into Barbados. The Honourable Member of St. Michael Northeast, the Honourable Prime Minister suggested we will not discriminate against anybody, and it does not matter where they come from. So whether they are Middle Eastern or Far Eastern, whether they are North American or Latin American, it doesn't matter where they come from. We will not discriminate because that is not the Barbados way. Now, I don't, if you would protect me, Mr. Speaker, so I may finish what I'm trying to say. I am simply recollecting on the fact that the Honourable Prime Minister said that this is not the Barbados way, that we do not discriminate. I am re-emphasizing that I understood that to me with reference to country of origin, etc. I am further saying, in light of the speech of the Honourable St. Peter, I am now widening my understanding of that anti-discriminatory position to include people who are social partners, perhaps of the same sex, and who under this legislation will constitute a family. Now, beyond that, I was wanting to say before I was so rudely interrupted that having said that in very eloquent tones and with a great liberality of warmth in her expression, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, the Honourable Prime Minister, having said that, it gave me pause for thought, because I remember not too long ago, this government took an initiative to relax visa restrictions for people out of a Caribbean country, part of our Caribbean side, Haiti. Haiti took a decision to relax visa requirements for Haitians. And in no time at all thereafter, we resigned from that position and reversed on that and did not continue with that degree of welcome to brothers and sisters and fellow Caribbean people out of Haiti. So it gave me pause for thought, because it is one thing to say we would welcome anybody and everybody because it is not the Barbadian way to discriminate. Well, sound wisdom seemed to suggest at that time that whereas all the other CARICOM nationals could come free without visa requirements, the Haitians can't. And there was seemingly an acceptance that there's a soundness of wisdom in making that discrimination for a good cause. But today we hear, with reference to this particular measure before us, anybody can come. We will not discriminate. And further, those family constructs which are foreign to us in terms of what our law provides for will be accommodated under this legislation. Now, I heard one voice who speaks from a position of senior consultancy to the Prime Minister, suggests that the presence of the Ross University here, with its student population over a 9-month period for one student would be suggestive of the fact that we need to rely more so on this type of long stay visitor, because a student coming to Ross will be there for 9 months of a year, whereas the average, what we call traditionally the long stay visitor, is here for about 7 days. I think I heard that voice say that, and that the equivalent earnings value of that type of presence at Ross was that of 11,000 tourists. So we are more inclined to be embracing and accommodating welcoming and inviting of the type of visitor who can stay for 9 months or 12 months, because in money value terms, it pays off better. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I'm simply saying when I heard that voice seemed to suggest quite clearly that what we are about here is increasing the earnings potential of those who come to Barbados, and that is all right. But the question that I have to attach to that in the context of my submission thus far in this debate today is at what cost? Because if we are going to welcome anybody from anywhere, we have to be able to measure and count potentially the cost and not only the value of earnings. I need to ask the Minister of Home Affairs, I believe he will speak in this debate, as to whether or not part of what gives rise to the haste in this matter today has anything to do with the fact that there are already persons here living and working under these conditions in the absence of the legislative basis that would allow for that. Is there anybody, or are there any persons here already known to the government, known to the Honorable Minister, living and working under these conditions in the absence of the legislation having been framed and passed in this House? Are we trying, therefore, after the fact, to catch up with the incidents of what's going on around us with respect to this? But I really would like to hear him definitively say that that is not the case, and that he knows it is not the case, categorically not the case. I really wait with bated breath to hear the Honorable Minister speak to that. If I don't hear him speak to that, Mr. Speaker, like you, I will conclude that it is in fact true that this legislation is seeking today by its haste to catch up with the reality, the events, and to cover those people, who already would have been given permission in the absence of the law so to operate. If it is not so, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister can clearly stand and definitively say it is not true. And when he's on his feet, he can say what the Honorable Member St. Joseph is suggesting while in his seat, that it is garbage coming from this place. If it's garbage,
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I have
garbage,
not
say
yet
so.
spoken in this debate, and I don't believe that Hansard would indicate that I made any comment in this chamber. And I asked the Honourable Member to withdraw his comment. There are rules.
I remember because I realized that your microphone wasn't on, etc. Understood. Understood, I remember, St. Joseph. Continue.
And I agree entirely with the Honourable Member St. Joseph that there are rules, and that is why I raised the issue. Because if what I say is true, then rules are being broken, because there are rules. If what I'm saying is not true, simply say categorically, as Honourable Minister of Home Affairs, that is not true to my knowledge. There are some who believe government wants to embark upon a path where down the road we see this type of initiative evolve into something else, as practiced in other parts of the Caribbean, where people find non-traditional ways of becoming citizens of these countries. There are some who believe that this initiative is a first step in that direction towards introducing something called citizenship by purchase. Citizenship by investment. There are some who believe that. And I know that the honorable member of St. James North, again, categorically will say that that is not the case. And I encourage him so to do, so that that thought may be dispelled in the minds of those who are given to that type of folly. So I urge that. Now, the question has to be asked is the benefits to be realized, and where the benefits mostly so will be realized. Obviously, if this comes to pass, that is, the legislation comes into being, policy is put in place, and people do come, there will be some jobs, some spin-offs in relation to employment, and that is absolutely necessary at this very crucial time in our economy. But sometimes those who benefit at that level benefit only incidentally. The real benefit is served and intended so to do to select interests or to select groups. Obviously, those who are involved in the property or property development sector, those who are involved in the hotel sector, the housing accommodation sector, will benefit significantly if this materializes to the extent that the government seems to envisage. So we really need to have an understanding as to what those in the property-related sector, those in the housing or accommodation, let me say, sector, can look forward to, as well in speaking clearer terms as to those at the other level, those who are employees, those who give help as domestics, and those who work in areas which are incidental to a properly functioning and viable tourism industry. And I say this, and it could be dismissed again by those who hear in these immediate precincts if they want. But I remember recently going on social media, and I heard a very loud rant from a hotelier in Barbados. A hotelier in Barbados, in absolute and clear terms, demanding that the government bring certain legislation to this parliament by a certain time. And I thought to myself how empowered some of these people feel that they can, in those tones and in that context, speak to those who lead this country, and not only speak to them, but expect them to respond. That had to do with, I think, severance payments, benefits, or something like that, and extending the qualifying time, something like that. And loud, ranting voice, almost threatening tones, demanding of the government that it does this by X time. And it's not only the saying of it, that's one thing. It is the expectation that the government of the day, or any government of any time, must listen because of its tone, because of its position, because of its capacity to influence or even to support. Now, that was there for the whole of Barbados to hear. So when policy initiatives are brought here, one point of analysis and reflection must always be who ultimately is to benefit most from the intention of the government. And that is all I'm saying. Speaking clear terms as to what the policy is intended to achieve, who you expect to benefit mostly, and in what volumes, and how incidentally those at the bottom may benefit, if at all. Problem I have in part with the legislation, Mr. Speaker, is that it seems to rely on a process of self-certification. Now, I know the application must be made to the chief immigration officer. But I look at the schedule to this legislation, and it tells me what the qualifying criteria are. X amount of money in assets, $100,000 or something like that, wherewithal the means, and you must be working legitimately at a job here in Barbados and only that job, etc., etc., etc. But then a simple question, quite seemingly innocently put, do you have any criminal conviction or something like that? Yes or no? Chances are the person who is criminally bent or criminally experienced will say no if the answer in honesty is yes. But it seems to me, the point I'm making is that in this era, in this day and age, Mr. Speaker, questions that seek to ascertain the legitimacy and bona fides attaching to persons who are seeking privilege, qualify for some benefit, are more stringent than that, more probing than that. You go to the banks of Barbados now, there are real problems. I passed through Trinidad on private business just before this COVID thing, and I just wanted to change some money at the banking kiosk in Piarco. Business 45 minutes, and it's not that I had to wait behind anybody. Maybe I look shifty. Maybe I did not wear the garb. Shady, yeah, shifty and shady. I hear that from the other side. And maybe I did not wear the garb of innocence that attaches to our Honorable Attorney General. And, but Mr. Speaker, very serious point is that 45 minutes, and I didn't have to wait behind anybody. It took that length of time to change a few dollars, not much, you know, Mr. Speaker. Not much. I'm seeking simply to suggest that this day and age, with all that is going on around us, led by the criminal impulse that is quite organized, it seems to me that the innocence of the question posed in here is befuddling. You mean to tell me that part of what I do for my application is simply to say yea or nay, I don't have a conviction? Banks talk about know your customer protocols. Our relatives already have been mentioned in here today, Mr. Speaker, deemed now politically exposed persons. The average guy out there needs a police certificate of character simply to get to see some members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Simply to get to see some members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Now, that's a tongue-in-cheek comment, but you understand the drift of what I'm saying. The protocols, the requirements are quite stringent. Now, for something like this, for people coming from all around, simply ask the question, have you had a criminal conviction? Well, you don't even have to provide, apparently, if the schedule entails all there is attaching to the matter. You don't have to supply anything like that. Likely, Mr. Speaker, if we get into situations where we have to deal with a criminal element that emerges out of this facility, we are therefore dealing today with fairly loose legislation in an era of white-collar crime. Now, if you are going to be dealing with people in this kind of a universal way, I apologize, Mr. Speaker. I sometimes get distracted by things that otherwise really shouldn't. But I think I was talking about white-collar crime. That's the era in which we live. And if we're going to be dealing with crime in connection with anything that evolves out of the passage of this legislation and our welcome mat that we're throwing out to people from anywhere without discrimination, we're going to be dealing with white-collar crime. Mr. Speaker, you and I both know that Barbados can't even get a handle on white-collar crime here at home. Barbados cannot even get a handle on white-collar crime here at home. You deal with the courts, Mr. Speaker. I know you can't help me. I look to the warm for smile of your face. I don't look to you to do anything to try to help me because I know you can't. I just look to the warm for smile radiating from your face to find moral strength and fortitude to persist in the face of such puerile folly emanating from some of your colleagues. Now, I'm talking about a very serious thing. And maybe the Attorney General is quite the appropriate person to speak to that. Because we cannot get a handle on white-collar crime in this country. We can't. And if this bill is as innocent as it seems, and if the protocols to be followed is as mild and friendly as they are or appear to be, then you can expect that coming among those who come to us will be a criminal element. And if you cannot deal with white-collar crime in Barbados effectively, I do not know how you're going to deal with white-collar crime that is imported, no matter how warmly welcome. Now, you can dismiss that as a fleeting focus on some folly of some sort. But all I'm telling you is, if we are going to discuss these matters, if we are going to give thoughtful study to these matters, some of these things must occur to us. We live in a day of transnational organized crime. That has been admitted by both sides in this honorable chamber in recent debates. We live in a region where some of our jurisdictions are known already to have been exposed to terrorist presence. Mr. Speaker, as innocent as we are, the world about us is not altogether all that innocent. And there are elements looking for opportunity. Am I saying that the government should not have this welcome mat program, this welcome stamp program? I'm not saying the government should not have this welcome stamp program. I am saying if you can do it, you do it with full thought, you do it carefully, and you are careful not to be overly hasty in seeking to do what you purpose to achieve. And not far from us, it has been acknowledged that there's a terrorist presence already in the Caribbean. Barbados is not immune from anything that is happening in the world. It can't be forever immune from that either. And those types of elements will always look for what constitutes for them the easy opportunity. And we should resolve not to present them here, unintentionally so, or intentionally so, with any easy opportunity for such. There is the phenomenon now of cross-border cartels. Mr. Speaker, I don't try to frighten anybody. I'm pointing to realities. And a parliament which is serious will consider all these realities when it is doing what it considers to be necessary and vital business. And those cartels are not located in one or two areas of Mexico, but they have their links across borders. And there may be those here chosen to lead who, rather than give consideration to these matters, may want to be dismissive of them. But one of these days we will wake up and find that these things are not so far-fetched. We had a terrorist action resulting in total death to all threatened by the circumstances at the time off the coast of Barbados not so long ago. This party had happened to be the administration of the day, and should very well remember that. And those were in the innocent days of terrorist activity. Those days are no longer that innocent. And if you are going to provide qualifying criteria for people which they must meet in order to be given a welcome stamp to Barbados, these things cannot be dismissed simply because we are broke, simply because economic activity in some sectors or areas will have grounded to a halt, simply because we need to employ people, and very quickly so, to avoid even further stresses. Understand all of that. I understand all of that. But even in the light of that, we can't just go wildly. We must proceed thoughtfully and cautiously. Yeah? It's called hurrying up while you take your time. And that's all essentially I'm trying to say. I don't see any query here as to source of funds. I presume somewhere along the line, the Immigration Department will inquire into that. But it's $100,000, that's not a lot for some people, I presume. It's a lot for you, I know, Mr. Speaker, and I sympathize with you. It's a lot for me. We walk together in that regard. US $50,000. It may not seem like a lot of money, but I don't see any query as to source of funds. Just a reference to the fact, yes, I have $100,000 in some account. So once you have it, and you can sign and say, I don't have any criminal record, the Immigration Department is expected to give you a stamp of welcome to throw out the welcome mat. Now, the Honorable Member of St. James Central, what he said was absolutely correct. If you are going to come with a program like this, and you are going to facilitate people, you can't do that and then frustrate them by having a process that is either stagnated, not at all fluid, does not provide a facility of speed that makes the initiative worthwhile and the effort beneficial to the prospective visitor. We have a problem here still. Length of time in processing at the Immigration Department. Applications for all kinds of things. Application for all kinds of things. It takes an inordinately long time, sometimes years. Some of our Caribbean people who've been here for a while and have to do renewals of certain instruments to facilitate their further stay and their further work. It takes a while to process them. But we get the impression that with this, automatically and overnight, this will kick in 1st of August. We will have visitors from the 2nd of August. And we're on our merry trek. Well, I think we've got to do what we can to make our facilities more capable, our processes more capable of expediting people when once we've put in place, and thoughtfully so, the proper regimes and the proper protocols. I heard more than one reference to the fact that we have the technological capacity, the telecommunications capability of accommodating this type of visitor for this type of purpose. I would like to think so, and there are those who perhaps are in a better position to speak to that than I am. But I know I hear people complaining frequently about the service provided through our telecommunications and technology service providers. I hear that repeatedly. Some of the entities getting the biggest bad raps in Barbados today are those who provide service in the world of technology and telecommunications. And that's a fact. I think if you're going to be attractive to people who come from well-developed jurisdictions or areas within well-developed jurisdictions, you really got to have the kind of platform that would make it functional, worthwhile, and workable for them. And I have my concerns about the impact upon not only technology or telecommunications, architecture, but generally our infrastructure. We are, and it has to be said, you can say I'm opposing for opposing's sake. I never do that. But it has to be said, we are finding serious challenges servicing our population in some critical respects. You know that, Mr. Speaker. I have to go over that. Whether you're talking water, you're talking sewage, we have challenges. So we have to be cognizant of those things and to strategize such that we target source jurisdictions and target numbers such that we are capable of managing. If that is not a consideration, those who speak with major voice on these matters can discount it. But I say that it is. They are the unscrupulous, and the legislation has to be clear as to whether you're targeting employees or self-employed persons, entrepreneurs, because the unscrupulous can set up a shell company, a dummy company, and come here as an employee. And I do not know that the legislation in any way suggests that this is anticipated. What stops a man hearing of this, seeing the ease for which you can qualify, setting up a company, a shell, a dummy company, coming here as its employee? What stops that? And we got to be able to put in place the kind of regime that speaks to avoidance of some of these compromising issues that have in the past run us into difficulty with institutions like the OECD, the EU, and others. This administration has been faced repeatedly and lamentably, if we make reference to the tone of the Honorable Attorney General when last he spoke on these matters, and with some degree of confusion as to why Barbados will be blacklisted and why, having sought through urgent passage of policy in this Parliament and other commitments to bring us in line with protocols put in place by these global institutions, why, having done all of that, economic substance legislation, having done all of these things, we still have problems with these institutions. We therefore have to be careful that we do not, when we do so embark upon policy initiatives, that we do not do it in a way that puts us in that kind of peril and jeopardy. Because if we are doing things right now in a way that seems to comply with what is required of these institutions, and we still run up against blacklist challenges, if we should endeavor to do anything that slightly compromises our position with reference to taxation policy or economic substance issues or the monitoring of companies present in Barbados coming from other global jurisdictions, then, Mr. Speaker, we are exposing ourselves to some more pain. Legislation is not clear as to what befalls people coming out of the CARICOM jurisdiction, CARICOM region. The legislation speaks to non-residents of Barbados. and defines it simply thus: non-residents, non-nationals of Barbados, non-nationals and non-nationals and people who come here for a period of 12 months to be given a welcome mat, and they will be designated as non-resident even though they go over the 182-day period stipulated in the already existing legislation. But it doesn't speak to what we are contemplating with respect to Caribbean nationals when we talk about non-nationals. And therefore, we have to be clear, and I hope the Urban Minister coming out of St. James North will again speak clearly to that as to what is relationship with what is intended here and its target audience vis-a-vis those who come from Caribbean jurisdictions and fall under the already existing CARICOM legislation. I am sure he is up to that, capable of it, and quite ready to speak to such. Mr. Speaker, from this position, I must always try to raise the alternative view and speak to the issues not admitted by the government, not put forward by the government in forthright fashion. And so I do today. Perhaps in principle, the initiative is a good one. If you're seeking to generate foreign exchange, promote economic activity in our domestic space, and provide for increased employment and to stop the slide to higher levels of unemployment and all that implies, all of that may be well-intentioned and worthwhile. But my concern is that the legislation seems a little bit naked, a little bit skimpy, a little bit innocent, and that we have not had clarity given on many of these, what I consider to be very serious issues. And I look forward to hearing the Honourable Member for St. James North. And if I don't, you will hear from me again, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Honourable Member for St. James North.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill before Parliament today is an extremely unique bill. It is a bill for the times. Certainly, in the lifetime of any of us, Barbados has never confronted such.
I remember. I would wish to hear.
Yes, sir.
I would wish to hear the honourable member for St. James North speak solely only the honourable member for St. James North, which means I shall therefore not entertain any asides from other members in the chamber.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I assume I could restart.
Yes, you can.
Okay, sir. I said that this bill is an extremely unique bill. It is a bill for the times which confronts not only, of course, our country, but the whole world. None of us have lived through any war with guns. But certainly, sir, this is equivalent to a war with guns, except there are no guns and except we have tremendous social and economic dislocation within all of our constituencies, our communities, and the whole country. I mean, I've heard, of course, my father speak about the Second World War and the shortage of goods in Barbados and the tremendous suffering of people during that time, sir. But this is something that has to come close to it within the context of our times. And all of this, sir, within essentially a 6-month period. the Honorable Prime Minister said in introducing this bill today, when it first started out in December, we thought maybe this was something that would stay in the furthest part of the world from Barbados, as other recent health pandemics or health issues did. But this quickly spread throughout the world. And a government that is responsible has to act, sir. Cannot stand by and watch absolute destruction and devastation of the people whom it has been elected to serve. So the reality of it is that even the strongest supporters of the Democratic Labour Party would privately admit to all of us, as I'm sure they have done, certainly to me, that it is a good thing that the immediate past Prime Minister was not in office, because half of us would be dead by now. He would have done nothing, sir. This is a situation where any leadership, political leadership, has to act, sir. And therefore, sir, in 3 weeks ago exactly, the Honorable Prime Minister, sir, in an act of absolute brilliance, announced to the public of Barbados and to the world, sir, for the first time, that this was a concept, an initiative, a vision that the Barbados government will be embarking on. Within 48 hours of that announcement, through the night, sir, about 20 international newspapers featured her speech and her disclosure, sir. It was incredible. People WhatsApping me these newspaper articles, top newspaper articles, financial articles all over the world, Europe, America, Canada, sir, England, on this concept, sir. That is what leadership is about. Sir, and I challenge anyone, sir, who claims that they are patriotic, who claims that they are nationalistic, who claims that they love this country, to stand in contradiction to this, sir. As I said a couple of weeks ago, the party that the leader of the opposition leads, sir, is in a race to the bottom with the Democratic Labour Party to see who will also run, sir. We are not in that, sir. We have constituents, sir. And so let me speak about my constituency, sir. I'm extremely proud and have the honour to represent St. James North, a West Coast constituency. A constituency, sir, of which I calculate 80+% of households within a particular socio-economic bracket have been dislocated socially and economically within the last 3.5 months because of a health pandemic that we had nothing to do with the start, sir. And I'm not blaming anybody, sir, but that is the reality, sir. At least 80% of the households in St. James North, sir, have been dislocated. 2,000 people, sir, without jobs in March and April this year. 2,000, sir, because tourism, sir, and if anyone thought that tourism was not a fundamental aspect of Barbadian way of life and being, sir, the last 3.5 months has proven them wrong. 40% of the gross domestic product of this country, directly and even more so indirectly, sir. So in my constituency, sir, as I said, at least 80% of the households within a certain socio-economic bracket, sir, and that is 90% of the geography of the constituency, either working in a hotel, in a villa, in a guest house, in a restaurant. When the night come, playing at some place entertaining people, working on the beach, jet ski operator, sir, braiding hair, renting beach chairs, sir, selling on the side of the road, food, other ornaments, souvenirs of Barbados, sir. Don't mind Whole Town, sir, a part that the honourable member for St. James Central represents is just outside the constituency, but working in Whole Town, sir, in plazas. That is the reality of St. James North, sir. I don't know. And sir, I challenge any member of this parliament, sir, and the leader of the opposition, honourable leader, sir, is a 3-time parliamentarian. He represents the St. Michael constituency. But we are not far-stretched, sir, that St. Michael constituencies are not affected tremendously by tourism, sir. And even if they aren't, sir, even if they aren't, they have people, they have relatives on the West Coast. So in fact, I could say this, sir. I mean, the honourable member for St. Michael West, sir, I mean, after all, he was one of us until circumstances, he felt that he had to leave, sir. And there are people in my constituency who are registered to vote in his constituency, and I told them, remain and vote for the honourable member. Well, that is what he did, sir, so that he could get more votes, rather than transfer them to vote for me where they live, sir. Why kept them by him? So they have a connection, sir. All of us connected in here suffered tremendously because of what has happened, sir. This initiative, in the erudite wisdom of the Honourable Prime Minister, sir, is brought before this Parliament to help save this country, sir, from what has been going on. People have to start working, money has to start circulating, sir. If not, rather than die from COVID, sir, there are some people who could potentially die of starvation. But that is what we're dealing with. And I'm not, sir, going to sit down here and stay silent and let people who oppose for the sake of opposing, who fighting up with another set of misgruntled people, sir, to become the voice of the opposition, seek to undermine a program. Because the honourable member said he's going to support it, but yet then sought to undermine it at every step, sir. And this takes us back to, what, just over 40 years ago, sir, 1978, 1979, when the late Right Honourable Tom Adams, then Prime Minister of Barbados, brought in international business legislation. And the then opposition party sought to undermine it and say how mafia can come into Barbados. The late Sir Richard Haynes, I could hear his speech right now because I used to listen to those debates, sir, saying how we can let in the mafia element and Barbados can be overrun with criminal elements here. And this is reminiscent of what the honourable leader of the opposition just said. You know, and the international business sector grew to become the second only to tourism in terms of foreign exchange earnings in this country, sir. Employing thousands of people, bringing in millions of money in foreign exchange into this country. But yet that is what it was supposed to do, and it was supposed to bring in a whole set of gamblers and all kind of things, sir. I'm not in that, sir. I didn't come in politics for that, sir. I came in, and all of us here came to help people, sir. And so this issue, Barbados, sir, we have an arrangement with regional institutions whereby we know who's coming in here and their records, sir. And we have arrangements with Interpol and international law enforcement agencies, sir, through that Caribbean agency, sir. So anyone, for example, who has been deported previously from Barbados, sir, and a lot of people were deported by the last government, sir, wrongfully, sir, that is the truth, for foolishness. They had children in Barbados, for Barbadians, but still they were deported for overstaying, sir. And if they attempt to come in, we know, sir, they could write and ask me as ministers to revoke, sir, and they do so. But even a simple thing like that, coming into Barbados where you have a deportation order against you, we know. So this hysteria, or pretended hysteria, because I know the Honorable Leader of the Opposition knows better, sir, that we can get criminal elements, and all we have is a question about whether they have a serious criminal conviction, sir. Really and truly, let me tell the public, sir, is of no cause for concern. We have mutual information agreements, sir, mutual tax arrangements with other countries, mutual cooperation agreements, sir, all of this. The nation state, the sovereign country of Barbados has put in place, sir, to keep out criminal elements, sir. And the issue of citizenship by investment, well, we've stated that many times, sir. We don't have to repeat that here, that we're not in about that. Countries within our CARICOM arrangement are free as sovereign countries to go into that, sir, and have gone into that, but we have said no, that we are not going to go into that, sir, and that we feel our passport, the Barbados passport, is one of the highest rated in the world, one of the top 25, sir, and we are satisfied, sir, that we don't have to go into that, sir, but we respect the right, sir, of our CARICOM sister countries, some of them, to do that, sir. That is what sovereignty is about. But the issue, sir, of degree of inquiry and research and study on the matter, sir, by that time, the shit's sick. We don't have time for that, sir. The Honorable Prime Minister spoke about it. First person to speak about it in the whole wide world, sir. And all the other 190-odd countries in the world could have done that. The first prime among leaders internationally in this global setup that we have now. And others following now. Bermuda and I hear another CARICOM sister country, sir. We're not afraid of them. We feel that we are competitive enough and that the Barbados brand product that we offer will come on top of all the rest, sir. Because in this country, we don't have any restriction of one car per family, for instance, that another country may have, sir. We have top infrastructure, sir. And even though the Honorable Leader of the Opposition may have sought to criticize the telecommunication network, the reality is that our telecommunication network is tops for the size of our country, the development of our country, and the population of our country, sir. I mean, sir, I don't think that is an argument that you ought, that really and truly is worthy of bringing to this Parliament, sir. As I said, I know that.
Member, I would wish to allow the honourable member for St. James North to speak uninterrupted so that I can listen attentively also.
Sir, as I said, that argument has been advanced by the other opposition parties. Sir, I didn't think it was worthy enough that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition should bring to this Parliament. Issues of money laundering, sir, as I said, don't come into play, sir. And the Honourable Leader of the Opposition spoke towards, we only have about certification, sir. You certify that you're making $100,000 a year. And that is why wisely, sir, wisely, and sir, I also have to give credit to the Honorable Attorney General for this. That is why, sir, we have in Section 3B, sir, I mean the Honorable Leader of the Opposition may not have read it, sir, that he can show proof of annual income of 100,000 or more, sir. So in other words, that gives the Minister of Immigration, no, sir, George, listen a bit, George. That gives the Minister of Immigration, and through him, the Immigration Department, the ability to ask for proof if they want, sir. If they want, sir. But we are into ease of doing business. You know, sir, one of the problems that caused this country to go down virtually into the gutter, socially and economically, under the last government, sir, was the fact that they made it so difficult to do business. And they refused to do anything whatsoever to ease doing business in this country. So therefore, we fell from number 72 out of about 190 countries in the world in 2007 to 140 on the ease of doing business index in May 2008, sir. The whole profile and thrust of this government, sir, is to ease doing business. And sir, that is what we're about. This process can be complicated, sir. Well, but by the time you get through filling the form, if you had all of these peripheries, sir, somebody gone somewhere else or staying home saying, but this is too complex, I don't want to come and live here, sir. Ease of doing business. And therefore, sir, you also have in this act provision to show proof of income generation outside of Barbados. So I can only assume, sir, that the Honorable Leader of the Opposition did not read the bill before him too well, because he spoke about source of funds, that there's no provision for where the funds come from, sir. Well, it right there, sir, in black and white, show proof that income is generated outside of Barbados, sir. So, sir, this bill is sound. It is an initiative to help save Barbados, sir. We are satisfied that we are in compliance with international tax legislation and all of our international agreements, sir, and that is why, for example, or one of the reasons, for example, why we are not deeming these individuals to be resident in Barbados for the purpose of the Income Tax Act, sir. So, you know, sir, in their enthusiasm as to the absolute brilliance of this idea, yes, some international media said that people will be charged income tax, local income tax, sir, without knowing, sir, what's the position. And we obviously have to now pull back from that. Clearly, Section 4 says they will not have to pay income tax, sir, because if that was so, if they were paying, that is when we could get in trouble, sir, in terms of breach of our agreements internationally, sir. And as for the OECD countries, sir, so we're a sovereign country, have been so since 1966. None of us in here could speak about what the OECD will do. What we do know, though, sir, is that the international economic order needs to change, and that the order that we have inherited from pre-colonial times and which still exists today, the Bretton Woods order, sir, has to change. And that's what we're pushing for. And that's what reparations and everything else that has risen to the fore again recently speaks too, sir. But we can't speak for OECD, sir, what they will do. We know and we are satisfied on the best legal and tax advice that we are in compliance and that we are not in breach of anything that they should come and seek to humbug us, sir. In terms, sir, the definition of non-national, sir, person who is not a citizen of Barbados, well, that is clear, sir. Well, a 6-year-old child can understand what that means, sir. That is the truth. So therefore, of course, CARICOM citizens could avail themselves of this too. Absolutely no problem, sir. And clearly that has to be so because under our regional agreement, sir, CARICOM citizens have to be given any privilege or right of people who are outside the CARICOM, sir. National treatment, non-discrimination clause, in the revised Treaty of Sagaramas, all of that put together, sir. So we welcome everyone, sir. We don't welcome the criminal elements. If they come, sir, we will know. If they apply, we will know, sir. We will keep them out. We are not dealing with people who look into money launder, sir. We will know that too. We have things in place or to evade taxes. We are satisfied we have the infrastructure, the telecommunications to deal with it. It is not a question, sir, of our population being swamped, sir. The Honorable Prime Minister spoke this morning, and of course, this is presently, in terms of policy, being considered and has been considered, and it's continuing to be considered by the Cabinet of Barbados, sir. Population growth, the National Population Commission, which speaks towards optimizing Barbados' population by up to 400,000. In other words, just over 100,000 more within a particular period of time, sir. And every day, sir, as Immigration Minister, we are looking at that so that we can soon bring platform to Cabinet and then to Parliament in terms of new immigration and citizenship bills to play our part in this population increase, sir. Because the reality is that Barbadians cannot be inward looking. We cannot be a closed society, sir. We will not go forward, sir, and we can't be satisfied with what, 1%, 2% growth, annual growth every year, sir. And that continuing with a declining population, because the statistics show that within, in fact, the last 3-4 years, our population has declined. Certainly in the last 50 years, our population has not kept a pace at what it used to be, 2.1% growth in demography, sir, because people are getting less children and people are living older. And therefore, the support system for people when they reach senior age, the National Insurance Scheme will become under pressure unless our population grows in terms of people of productive age, sir. So those who talk about population change and we can accommodate these people, sir, really and truly need to wheel and come again, sir. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition spoke about who will ultimately benefit most from this, and select groups, sir. You know, this is the usual propaganda age-old, sir, that has been continuously used against the Barbados Labour Party, sir. The reality, sir, and I understand a bit of politics, sir, is that if you have a lie, get a head start over you, sir, it's hard to catch it up, sir. The people who can benefit from this, sir, is people who now don't have a job. People who, even if they're gone back out to work within the last month, sir, working 2 days or 3 days, sir, I got a lot of them in my constituency. But Mr. Hickson are gone back to work, you know, because I call many of them, sir, canvass, sir, on weekends, come across them. So you're back out 5 days? No, I only got 2 days or 3 days, but are thankful for that, are going to make do with it, sir, because we resilient, sir. But the reality of the situation is that when the unemployment benefit, sir, which last 6 months runs out in November or September, sir, whichever one, October, what people, we need to get people back to work, sir, somehow. So we have allowed commercial flights to come back in. Well, we never closed off, sir. And the Honorable Minister of Health has led a team that has, quite frankly, done yeoman national service in ensuring that health protocols are in place, sir. So no problem with that. We have said no to America, sir, because what? 60,000 plus people a day being discovered with COVID over the last 2 weeks, sir. We can't take that because the health of the nation, the security of the nation has to be paramount, sir. And yes, those countries, a couple countries in the Caribbean that allow them in now close it back off. That shows the wisdom of the stance we have taken on that, sir. So don't let it seem, man, you know, the rich people or the white people or the hoteliers can benefit from this, sir. I know, and I speak in, sir, as a member of Parliament for a West Coast tourist belt constituency, sir, which has been totally undermined because of COVID, sir. And government, neither government nor the members of Parliament can sustain looking after all their constituents who have been dislocated for a continuous period of time, sir. That's the reality. You're not fooling anybody here today. That's what we have to deal with, sir. They're going to be those, sir. You know, before I get to that, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition spoke about work permits and people, implying people working here, non-Barbadians, without work permits, or without authority. And, you know, I already said in here, sir, that the Honorable Leader of the Opposition has to lead and really and truly should not be led by one of his two appointed senators in the other place, sir, because I know where that came from. But I can tell you, sir, that certainly whenever the Immigration Department, or whenever I, sir, as Minister with responsibility at the present time for it, sir, gets notice that someone is so doing, sir, we act. I certainly immediately call the Chief Immigration Officer and tell him, look, investigate this, sir. So you had an incident earlier this year with a hotel, sir. It was investigated, sir. And I asked for the file, and when it came, no, you don't have permission to work, sir. You don't have permission to work here. We don't work, so there's a process, advertisement. All right? Give Barbadian citizens, CARICOM citizens, the opportunity to apply, sir. So I don't know. But like I said, I know where that came from, sir. The senator in the other place. Sir, we are protecting, sir, in paragraph 7, clause 7, Barbadian jobs, because an individual for whom a stamp has been granted shall not engage in employment in Barbados other than employment for which the stamp is granted, sir. But that is what any responsible government would do, protect the jobs of Barbados. We're giving you the work permit for you to do the work that you had overseas. We're facilitating you, sir. And, you know, this thing, I see the other opposition party speaking about accommodations. So we got a lot of accommodations in Barbados. And you will choose according to your means and to your taste. You could go in a hotel, you could go in a villa, you could go in a rental house. You could go down by Basiba, West Coast. You have a choice. So this thing about the accommodation going to be expensive, sir, I'm not into that, sir. People will choose in accordance with their means and in accordance with their desires, sir. And more people in employment. As the Honorable Prime Minister said, we don't know how many people will avail themselves of it, sir. We don't know. But you have to take a chance. You have to do something. We know that there has been tremendous interest in it. That is what we know. Tourism has been asked, immigration, Prime Minister's office, other ministers, sir. And that is what we know. And I too join, sir, in praising the public officers and those others, sir, consultants to the government, sir, and to talk about consultants. We have too many consultants, but consultants were involved in bringing this. They're earning their pay. But also others who have done it gratuitously in working out, helping work out the fine print towards an idea, a concept devised by the Honorable Prime Minister. And I give thanks to them, sir. You're not allowed to call names, sir. They know who they are, sir. And I'm sure at the given times and at a given place, their names will be called, they will be recognized, sir. This is an online process, and the Honorable Leader of the Opposition spoke about delays in immigration application processing, sir, and I totally agree, sir, that used to be so. You know, take 5 years and all kind of unreasonable times to process an application. That used to be the norm in a lot of cases with immigration, because they used to ask for, under the edict of Democratic Labour Party ministers of immigration, sir, or ask for health certificate letter from Queen Elizabeth Hospital that you don't owe Queen Elizabeth Hospital, when the only time you have set foot in Queen Elizabeth Hospital is to visit somebody, and a national insurance certificate and income tax clearance certificate and all kind of things that were not required in the laws of Barbados, and we've done away with all of that. And therefore, immigration now has improved, sir, on their capacity to process applications in a more timely manner. Not, sir, perfect yet, but moving towards there. By placing a lot of these online, by getting rid of all of these nebulous requirements that were necessary, sir. And therefore, there has been an improvement. And as I said in this Parliament before, sir, immigration, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many, is the most improved government department in the 2 years, 2 months that this party has been in office again, sir. So, sir, look, this process is online. It is there for facilitation, sir. We have processes to check and to do verifications, sir, and we are satisfied, sir, that this is something that we have to do in terms of bringing Barbados back, as we have to where people can survive comfortably again, sir. Before I conclude, I'd like to speak on 2 matters, sir, because in here, if you can't speak frankly and candidly in here, as elected parliamentarians, you would never do it, sir. One, the issue of the Cuban nurses working here, sir. And I stand in full support, sir, of my colleague, the honourable member for the city, sir, in rebuking any country, sir, whether it's the United States of America or any other, that seeks to tell us who should be able to work in Barbados, sir. In a crisis war-like situation, the Cabinet of Barbados made a decision that we're going to bring in 100 Cuban nurses and medical personnel, sir. And there's no country in the world that has the right to tell a sovereign country that we can't bring them in and want to penalize us, sir, by some act because of 3 senators who have Cuban background and who have a problem with Cuba, sir. That is not our concern, sir. Our concern is about saving the lives of people in Barbados, about the health of Barbadians and people who live here, sir. And the Cuban nurses are doing extremely well, sir. And issues of trafficking, sir. You know, again, as Minister of Immigration, I've been written about human trafficking, and they want to now tie in Cuban nurses working here, for whom we are paying, sir, you know. But they're not working here for free, we're paying them, sir. Wants to talk about human trafficking and penalizing Barbados. I don't know why countries that are big, developed, wealthy, who have their own problems, sir. Their own problems, whether it's in terms of racial disunity, control of health pandemics or otherwise, sir, but have time to try and trouble little Barbados, sir, that's struggling in an international environment that is against us, that we inherited our independence based on post-World War, sir, of which we had no say in the formation of these institutions and the international order, sir. And we are no threat to these countries, and we here in our little corner trying to do the best for our people and for our region, sir. And big countries that are blessed with a lot of resources want to come now and penalize us, sir. I stand fully and join fully with what the honorable member for the city said 2 days ago, sir. And finally, sir, you know, sir, I'm not getting in any fight today, whether with the honorable leader of the opposition or anybody else, sir. But, you know, when you can tackle a man on this front, you try to tackle him on another. So issues now surface in this debate about the definition of partner, sir. The laws of Barbados, sir, Marriage Act, Succession Act, Marriage Act, sir, speaks towards marriage being between a man and a woman, sir. There's absolutely nothing in this that undermines that, sir. For the last 45 years, the Parliament of Barbados passed legislation recognizing unions other than marriage. In fact, not 45, sir. Henry Ford, sir. Sir Henry Ford, sir. The Sir Henry Ford legislation, 1981, Family Law Act, sir, 40 years ago. But before that, sir, you had succession acts which recognized, as the Honorable Prime Minister said earlier, succession of children, whether born in or outside of a marriage relationship, sir. Right? You know, out of wedlock. And you recognize common law union, sir, because that's Barbados, sir. That's Barbados. Well, my father used to say that his mother, his relatives used to say, a good Lidwid better than any marriage, sir. So 5 years common law, well, that is a marriage, sir. So where we get into this thing now about now, you know, the implication by the opposition, sir, about now you're undermining a marriage, sir. The reality, sir, is that Barbados lets in, we have as tourists all kind of people, sir. All kind of people, all kind of classes of people, sir. Come in. We don't ask you, wait, well, you all are same-sex marriage partners, no? And stop you from coming in, sir. And the hypocrisy, and the honorable member for St. Peter, sir, spoke on this, and I regard the honorable member for St. Peter, sir, is, in my submission, sir, the moral light of this parliament, sir. I take moral guidance from him, sir. That's the truth. So I not getting into this, sir. But the reality of the situation, sir, you know, where I can't stand for hypocrisy, sir. And I can't stand for hypocrisy. And there is no way, sir, that I can be the judge of anyone. I will not stand in judgment of anybody, because the law that is reserved for the Lord, sir, on Judgment Day, and not for any human being, sir. And I always say this, sir, that Nelson Mandela, the late Nelson Mandela, who I certainly, and who I believe a significant majority of the world recognize as one of the 3 greatest men of the 20th century, sir. Easily one of the 3 greatest, sir. You know that South Africa was the first country, sir, to legalize same-sex marriage, sir. I am saying, sir, and I want to make it fundamentally clear, that this bill before Parliament does nothing whatsoever to undermine the sanctity of marriage between one man and one woman, sir. But I am saying, sir, that one of the 3 greatest men of the last 120 years said that South Africa cannot discriminate against people on the basis of sexual preference, and at the same time say that apartheid was wrong. Because you can't say that discriminating against people on the basis of color is wrong, but then discriminate against people on the basis of their sexual preference. And therefore, South Africa was the first country in the world in 1994 or 1995, I think it was, that legalized same-sex marriage, sir. So, you know, sir...
Could you all remember wind up, please?
Yeah, yes, sir. So I'm not into hypocrisy, sir. We are allowing partners in, sir. You know, that has nothing to do with definition of marriage, sir. Sorry, definition of family, as the Honorable Leader of the Opposition was implying, sir. Nothing to do with that, sir. Family structure is intact, sir. But the reality is that this is a tourism thrust bill. That is what it's about. To try to regain some aspects in some way of an economy that depends 40% of GDP on tourism, sir, which essentially disappeared to a large extent within the last, certainly in 3 months, between March and last month, sir, and with the consequence adversely and destructively on each and every community in this country, sir, because all of us are one, sir. And you can't say the West Coast or the South Coast, the tourists there, because everybody has families, sir, and friends all about this country and relationships, sir. That is what Barbados is about, sir. I stand fully in support of this bill, sir, and look forward to its successor, and I really call on all Barbadians, sir, to join with us, because we're all in this together. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Honorary Member for St. James South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to join my colleagues in speaking to the Welcome Stamp program and to congratulate those who have spoken before and who have so eloquently supported this program because of its tremendous importance to the Barbadian economy and to the survival of the families of this nation. Mr. Speaker, this government, one of our hallmarks has been that we have brought to bear to governance bright, bold, innovative initiatives. From the time we confronted the chaos, the economic collapse of Barbados when we took office in May in 2018, we have sought to bring before the people of Barbados initiatives that are capable of taking this economy, this country, its citizens, out of harm's way. But it's not just bright, bold, and innovative. One of the things that characterizes this administration is our care for people and their well-being. And it is this drive that has brought to this honorable chamber this piece of legislation today, the Welcome Start program, to be able to offer to our country an opportunity for us to be able to enable every citizen to be able to regain an economic footing in this country. And one of the characteristics that I admire so much is how fearless, how bold our actions are, how responsive this administration has been in the face of this most daunting setback, when we anticipated that 2020 would have been a time of growth and forward propulsion. Here we were slapped with COVID-19, challenging us, standing in the path, saying it will not let us advance to go. But we brought an immediate response, Mr. Speaker, and we have sought to put in place initiatives to be able to assist the country to weather this particular storm. And now we're bringing before this Parliament initiatives to help us get around COVID and move forward. Indeed, as was shared earlier, the Welcome Start program was received so positively from the time it was announced. It was a leader, it was pioneering in the area of tourism, and was carried on news broadcasts across the world. It's on the lips of people everywhere. People want to come to Barbados. And indeed, it was like a bright, shining light in the midst of this COVID darkness that had created so much fear, and people want to escape, and the challenge of lockdown. The success of this program, the Welcome Start program, will come because it was made possible. It was made possible by the disciplined, intelligent approach that we brought to managing the coronavirus. A disciplined, intelligent approach. And how were we able to do this? One, that intelligent, disciplined approach was made possible by the leadership that we were able to bring to the situation through the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast. It was made possible, Mr. Speaker, by the brilliant execution of the Honourable Member for the City, his team, and our hard-working frontline workers who were able to diligently put in place what was needed and to take the country safely through a COVID crisis. It was made possible too, sir, by the determination and diligence in locating resources. And this part of the fight was led by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, where we had to scour the world, get to our partners, identify where we could get ventilators and masks and all the various things that we were going to need to be able to take on this fight. And I want to publicly honor them for the tremendous work that the ministry has done in that regard. It was also made possible, Mr. Speaker, by the steady, focused march of the Barbadian person by complying with the protocols, whether it was wearing their masks, sanitizing their hands, observing the distance, and enduring the inconvenience of the very long lines that we had to endure as a people. It was these qualities, these wonderful actions, that allowed Barbados to have close to 10 weeks of no local transmission of the virus. And therefore putting this little nation, this little country, head and shoulders above a number of other countries with greater resources and more people in the handling of this virus. But where are we now? We are at a point of urgency. We must now open our economy because we have to take care of the livelihoods of our people and the long-term viability of our economy. And to do this second leg of the journey is going to require the same qualities that took us on the first leg. We have to be bright, bold, and innovative. We have to be brilliant in the execution of this task. And the Barbadians need to be, again, steadfast, focused in their march, because on this second part of the journey, there must be no retreat and no surrender. Our lives and the future of our children depend on it. This evening, Mr. Speaker, I want to share why it is so important. Why must we take this step to open our economy, and why must we take it now? Why must we not retreat from confronting COVID-19 in the second phase or surrender to timidity? Indeed, we must not. And to illustrate, Mr. Speaker, it's like there is an accident and a person is gravely injured and they are bleeding. Continued bleeding will cause death. Onto the scene comes the paramedics. Their first duty is to stabilize that patient, to stop the bleeding as best they can, and hustle the patient to the hospital, where the necessary steps, the necessary repair must be done, the blood transfusion occur in order to provide that body with the necessary life-saving blood to allow the organs not only to be stable, but to heal and to allow that person to recover their lives and to be able to go forward and live. And our economy was exactly like that, Mr. Speaker. COVID gave us a dreadful accident, and the quick, swift movements of this Barbados Labour Party government helped to stabilize the patient by scotching the bleeding, whether it was in the provision of the national insurance, making sure that that got out to families, whether it was the granting of $600 per month to families via a card, whether it was the care packages that were distributed by the Ministry of People Empowerment, whether it was the Feeding the Families program and adopting a family and raising funds. Mr. Speaker, a number of initiatives were put on the ground to scotch the bleeding. But any medical person will tell you that the patient cannot live unless the next stage occurs. Death could still occur. Therefore, that blood transfusion is absolutely necessary. And why is that? If you understand how an economy functions, at the base of an economy are some of your primary activities. In some countries, the dominant one might be agriculture, in another, it might be manufacturing, or in the case of Barbados, it is tourism. This is the base. This is what earns the foreign exchange. This is what gives the bulk of the citizens their opportunity for work. That has to be strong and vibrant. Why? Because the next level of worker emanates from out of the fact that your tourism, agriculture, or manufacturing worker actually exists. That means that your shops cannot exist unless you have a cadre of people who are working. And therefore, people cannot get employment in retail shops unless you have sufficient people on the base working and earning. Your general workers, people who work in the food industry, all of them live off of the base of the economy, the tourism or the agriculture or the manufacturing. Your transport services, if you don't have enough people working, your transport services cannot function, and therefore people cannot work there. So your second tier of your economy depends on that base being in place and being strong. When that base is strong and your second tier now is making a living, you now have a sufficient critical mass of people to buy another set of services, not necessarily essential, Mr. Speaker. You're speaking here about your entertainment services. Enough people have to have the disposable income in their homes. There have to be enough people working in the home to be able to afford going out for entertainment and not just staying at home. To utilize beauty services, landscaping. There has to be sufficient income in homes for construction to take place, banking, IT, insurance services, specialized services. These all depend on the base and the second tier level of your economy to remain viable. Anytime anything happens in that base and destroys the base, the house will tumble down. Your third tier level of your economy cannot stand. And this is what is happening across the economy. This is what was shared by the Honourable Member for St. James North and for St. James Central. That in our constituencies, we have people who work in the third tier. And because tourism has collapsed, they now find it difficult to put food on the tables. Indeed, sir, in my constituency, I also have a number of tourism workers, people who work at the golf courses, people who work at the villas, people who work at the West Coast hotels, and they have been devastated. But I also have hairdressers. I also have people who do landscaping. I have people who run shops, and they're finding it difficult to get sufficient business to stay afloat because the base of the economy has been damaged. So what does that mean? That despite the income that the government has put into the economy, whether it's been paying off the VAT, making sure we pay suppliers, making sure we get people's income tax returns, making sure that they get their NIS, and that we give out those handouts that help them to keep food on the table, that is not sustainable. We have to repair the base and repair it quickly, because we can only do those measures for so long. If we are unable to do that, here is how the tumble will occur, Mr. Speaker. It means that while you have thousands of people who are unable to work, and you have thousands of people who are only working 2 or 3 days, it means the debts that they have been piling up, whether it's the light bill, whether it is the mortgage, whether it is the rent, the car, somebody they borrowed money from, it means that all of those companies now are undermined because thousands of people are unable to come in and pay them. It means that the retail stores downtown that offer credit, the people who work there will now be at risk because you do not have sufficient population in your base to allow for the payment of those services, and so your second tier and your third tier will collapse. So it is absolutely necessary that we find innovative ways to restart the economy, to jog it back in place, to find a way to get the base to come again, to grow again. Because if we don't, we are going to find all through Barbados, all through areas of my constituency, whether it's West Terrace, whether it's Wanstead, whether it is Warrens, whether it's Clover Crescent, or Durance, or Haynesville, we are going to find that people's lives will collapse and their businesses with them. So, what does that mean? There can be no pause. There can be no retreat. and there can be and must not be any surrender. So with the Welcome Stamp program, its success depends on us being able to market and sell it to those who are in a position at the moment to take up the offer. Because just as we have problems in our base, in our economy, across the world, all of those other economies are struggling too. Their base has been affected. Their second and third tiers have been affected. So any and everybody will not be able to take up this offer. But for those who've been able to retain their jobs, who've been able to retain their businesses, these are the ones who are going to be in a position to take up the offer which Barbados is putting on the table. And this means that we are going to be attracting people of means. It means we're going to be attracting people of high net worth. People who are going to be financially able to take up this offer, to come and make Barbados their island home, their place to work from. And generally, this is the population that Barbados usually targets in its tourism. Hence, what we've developed on the West Coast. Now, this will create a powerful recharge of our tourism aquifer. Barbados has been going through a serious water drought. And the Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Member for St. Philip South, has been longing and praying for rain, as indeed have all of us been. But the Honorable Member who leads us in the Ministry of Tourism, the Honorable Member for St. James Central, he too has been praying. He's been praying for his tourism aquifers to fill up again. And this particular program, the Welcome Stamp program, is what is going to recharge the aquifer with a younger clientele, with a business clientele. Barbados has had the reputation, Mr. Speaker, of having one of the highest repeat guest rates in the world. If you ask any Barbadian, if there's any place in the world that they go to visit 25 times, 30 times, 40 times, 55 times, Mr. Speaker, the only place you visit that often is home. And these people have made Barbados their second home. They have been with us from the time they were young married people. They got married on our beaches. They had children. They came back for their anniversaries. They came and celebrated the birth of their grandchildren. And they have stayed with us for years. But they're getting older and they're dying off. And Barbados now has to find a way to attract a younger, more vibrant, and well-off tourists to replace the ones that we will lose very shortly. And what this particular program does is gives Barbados an opportunity to so do. But the interesting thing about this group, Mr. Speaker, is that this group is accustomed living at a particular level. They're accustomed to a particular quality of service. They're accustomed to things being done a certain way. Why? Because they've always had the money to be able to afford it. Therefore, when they come to Barbados, they expect a quality of service that will match their expectations. And if we do this right, Mr. Speaker, if we do this well, we will hold the heart and hold and capture the minds and imaginations of another generation of tourists that will stay with Barbados for a long time. And we have one shot to do this with. That is why, to be able to deliver the high quality service that is necessary to make this program work, we must have high quality workers. We have to have workers who understand that we are in a battle for our livelihoods. We need to have workers who understand that when they go to work in the tourism industry, They must not only make a way for themselves, they have to make a way for the second tier and third tier workers, and that they are depending on them to do this so well that our economy will bounce back. They will carry the country on their shoulders. And we have a responsibility to prepare them, Mr. Speaker. We have a responsibility to train them to world-class standards of excellence. And I want you to understand, and through you, Mr. Speaker, the country, this government is not negligent. It is not willy-nilly and flighty. It is not all over the place like Punka and doesn't know what it is doing. We understand exactly what is needed. And if you look through our plans, you will see provision has been made to make sure the things that are necessary for our success are there. For this program, the Welcome Stamp program, it is absolutely necessary that we had put together the National Transformation Initiative, which is to provide the necessary training to allow our people to shine. So that every person in this country, from the top to the bottom, regardless of what work you do, that you can bring exceptional brilliance to the performance of your task. This is absolutely necessary. So what must happen now? I remember when I was a child, Mr. Speaker, in our culture, going out to visit was important. And I remember the weekends when my parents would take us to visit relatives, take us to visit friends. And I remember the times when friends would be coming over to visit. And my mother always said, when people are coming to the house, you have to be on your best behavior. You have to put your best foot forward. It was the same message when you were going out to visit. You have to be on your best behavior. And your mother would remind you of what constituted best behavior. Say good evening. Don't beg. Say thank you. Yes, please. No, please. No complaining. And lest you forget, you would get the look. And it would straighten you up in no time. Well, I want to say to Barbadians, with this Welcome Stamp program, we also have to be on our best behavior. We have to bring the best of Barbados to the fore, to showcase to the world, because people are going to talk about this program if it is brilliant. They will speak about it if it's average. And they will definitely speak about it if it's mediocre. And what we want to do is to showcase that Barbados is a place of quality, that Barbados is a place where people can deliver, that Barbados is a place that you want to live and work. A place of safety, Mr. Speaker. A place that can manage its business. Now, what is even more potent about this moment is the Black Lives Matter movement. Don't forget that the Black Lives Matter comes from out of a mindset where people believe black people can't do anything, that we're stupid, that we're second class, that we're idiots. And the battle that others have to persuade others of the quality and the equality of the black person, we have an opportunity as a nation to demonstrate that here is a little country capable of governing itself, can provide its people with education, health care, that we can provide social services that are necessary for the well-being of its families, and that we can manage our business and produce world-class service. This is the moment that we are producing, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, it is important that a number of things happen. On our best behavior, it means the country must be clean. And Mr. Speaker, This is the work assigned to the Honourable Member for St. Michael East. This is the work for the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. Make the country clean. Get teams to go out. And I want to thank my team for the work that is being done in the area of St. James South. I want to thank the Honourable Member for St. Michael East for the teams he's been sending out helping to make St. James South clean. Roads have to be built. People must have smooth roads to drive on. We want them to have an experience to remember, not one that we wish they would forget. And therefore, we want to thank the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, who has a wonderful, wonderful list of roads that he is going to be doing in short order. And I'm very happy to know that there's a road or two for St. James South on his list, and long may it be there until it is done. The country must be impeccable and efficient. That's right. Must be efficient and impeccable. And that means that Barbadians must not litter. This means we must clean up behind ourselves. This means we must treat the entire country as though it is our home so that we can welcome our visitors into a clean, hygienic environment that they feel comfortable, and that within a week or 2 weeks or 1 month, they are busy WhatsApping and Twittering and Instagramming every part of the world saying, come to Barbados. It is well worth it. This is how we're going to restore our first tier, our base, our second tier, and third tier workers. I want to take the opportunity to pause and do a commendation, Mr. Speaker. I believe that when people do well, you have to say so. We have applauded our frontline workers for the tremendous work, the tremendous challenge and sacrifice that they have made to walk us through COVID. But I want to congratulate the workers from the Ministry of Health and the workers from the airport who are now manning the airport and welcoming the visitors who are coming now that we have opened to commercial flights. I have had the pleasure of listening to a couple who came in a few days ago, Mr. Speaker. They said the service at the airport was absolutely wonderful. And even though they had to wait to get their tests done and to receive their test results, as tedious as it was, that entire wait was overwhelmed by the courtesy, the professionalism, the care. And these are people who know Barbados well. They're not new to it. This is not a first-time visit. They know. And they were so deeply impressed. And I want to offer publicly my commendation to them for representing the country so well and managing a process that could be filled with frustration and turn people off. One of the things I would want to commend to us to look at, if we are going to have people living with us for a year, it will be necessary to do some cultural diversity training. You see, come see me and come live with me is two different things. If you come for a short visit, you can stay in love with the rosy glow of the rosy-colored spectacles on your face for the entire week or 2 weeks. But when you come to live for 6 months and you come to live for a year, you get to know the belly of the country. You get to know the heart. Now, one of the things that our visitors will find is that Barbadians are warm-hearted, that Barbadians are emotionally connected. They will find that Barbadians like sharing, and I want to commend the number of people, not just the formally organized institutions that do charity work, and that's part of what they do. I'm talking about there are ordinary Barbadians who actually got up and decided, I'm going to mobilize some resources and help feed other Barbadians. They don't have any big organization behind them registered anywhere. They just had that heart and they got up and they did it. They're going to find those people. Our people are going to enthrall them. Our people are going to capture their minds and capture their hearts. But I want our people to understand where they come from too, and what is important to them, how important time is, how important efficiency is, and what are some of the do's and the don'ts that they need to consider when engaging people, especially if they're going to be living with you for a little while. That will make it easier for them to integrate and become part of the Barbadian society, because what I want them to do is to go away and feel that Barbados is family. That's what I want. I want to hear the stories of connecting to ordinary Barbadians, people in the bank, people that buy vegetables from, the person who comes to help clean the place, the guy who offers the jet ski services. I want them to connect emotionally to them so that they become an extension of Barbados. And so it is important that they have an experience and have information that helps them to adjust to Barbados and helps us to adjust to serve them and to serve them well. Sir, I want to finish by saying this to Barbados, and it is this: fear not. Fear not. People have expressed concern. If you open, COVID can come, and this and that, and they have been afraid. I want them to respect that disease. It is no respecter of persons. The thing that will keep us safe and keep every Barbadian safe is obeying the protocols. That's what did it before. That's what will do it now. Sanitizing, putting on your mask, maintaining social distance. And I want to especially appeal to those who will be working in the tourism industry, who will be engaging the people who will come in from overseas, to especially take that care. Why? Because two things they're going to be doing. That while they'll be providing for their families and making sure food is on the table, while they'll be providing the economic growth that will help our second and third tier workers to get work, they will also be protecting the people who are vulnerable in the society, our elderly, our children, the persons with comorbidity factors. And they have to be very, very disciplined in wearing their protective gear where assigned, and being careful in taking it off, and being careful to observe every protocol, including when they're traveling on the buses. Sir, there is risk, but all risk can be managed if we are brilliant in our execution and if we are steadfast in how we do what we have to do every single day. And if we do that, if we take this second phase and use those qualities that helped us through the first phase, we will be able to guarantee ourselves that there will be no retreat, there will be no surrender, and we will guarantee that we will be able to rebuild our economy, create the jobs, earn the foreign exchange, generate the government revenues that will help to take Barbados past COVID into an extremely bright future. I'm obliged to you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable St. Philip West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to be very, very brief on this, but I wanted to at least try to show or shed a different light on some of the conversation. There's nothing more that I can add in terms of why we are doing this, but I do want to make the point that it is important also that as we go through this particular exercise, that you understand why people say the things they say and what's the motive behind it. Now, let everybody in here pause for a minute. Just think about it. We inherited a destroyed economy in 2018. We were on the verge of setting it back on a path for growth. In comes COVID-19, unexpected. No one has ever dealt with it before in the history of man, which means it has created an environment that is untested, that is unknown, so to speak. In that sort of an environment, the worst thing that anyone could do is absolutely nothing. Because if you do nothing, then the environment dictates what happens to you. This government has taken the initiative to do something. To do something. The people of Barbados went to the polls and voted for this government because they felt at that particular point in time that this government could do something to get them out of a bad situation. What would make anyone think that because of the noise of a few naysayers, that the general public has automatically decided in one fell swoop that all of the honorable people sitting inside here representing them all of a sudden cannot make sensible decisions anymore? We've got to get serious about what we're doing and what we're saying. I listened very carefully to the honorable leader of the opposition, and I understand what the word oppose means. I understand what an opposition leader must do. But one of the things that you must not do is to seek to oppose for opposing's sake, or try to create fear within a society that will cause not only hysteria, but cause people to make bad decisions. To get people to go in the newspapers or on the calling programs and speak things that are not rooted in facts. That is undermining the very country within which you live. And it is undermining the very system that has given you the opportunity to be where you are. Now, in another place, you would probably call that suicide. Some places, you would call it sabotage. These things have no place in a society that prides itself on having a good educational system where people can think and make decisions that are in the best interest of everyone, regardless of political persuasion. And so, Mr. Speaker, this initiative, bold, this initiative, exciting. And it's not just exciting because I say so, but look at what was happening all around the world when it was announced. People were excited. And why do you think people were excited? You think that people didn't have confidence in Barbados to manage the COVID-19 process? That somebody would be excited to come here to do what? To die? But people are not stupid. But people would have seen and heard of how Barbados has managed the process from the inception. That is why they're excited to come. When the boy don't go and run in a fire, when a madman is doing them kind of things. So people coming to this country know full well of what we are capable of. what annoys me is that the people who live here seem not to know. Well, if you live in a country and you cannot have faith in yourself to be able to deliver that which you say you can deliver, but something will got to be wrong with you. Because at the end of the day, tell me, what is it that you're going to get out of it by trying to create hysteria? Well, nothing good can come out of that. And the same situation that you want to get out of, you're making it even worse for yourselves, who are the persons that are going to be suffering the pain from people not coming here at all, or you sitting down and praying for it to fail. This is one time when I have to disagree with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister said in her speech that she can't say if it is going to be successful. I want to say that I know it can be successful. I know it can be successful because I know what this country is capable of. And I always tell people, through no decision of my own, my parents take me out of England and bring me here. Have I left yet? No. And I'm not the only one. Take a trip down on the West Coast and see who's living down there. And they haven't left. And why haven't they left? They got all kind of places in the world that could go and live, from Timbuktu to the Seychelles Islands. But they choose to be in Barbados. There's got to be something about it. Think. Got to be something about it that people will leave the comforts of their own homes and set up shop here, not only just for business, but to live. And when you look at some of the names, Sir Cliff Richard, Eddie Grant, Tony Blair, with all kinds of people, cricketers, football players, business people from all around the world, have made this country their homes. And they didn't only do it because they got disposable income. Because if it was only about income, they could have chosen anywhere else in the world. So we've got to stop with this nonsense of constantly crying down ourselves to make a political point or score some sort of points, when what we are dealing with is the survival of every single human being on this island. It's not a joke, and it's not a political football either. This is life or death for some people, if not all of us. If not all of us. Because I can't see anybody in this room who can survive in this position or whatever position for the rest of, for 10 years going along like this. It's impossible. So therefore, there has to be a time when we can put our heads together and work together for the best interests of the country that we claim that we love. It cannot be that only at independence, everybody wants to stand up and put their hand over the heart and sing the national anthem and all of this. And then when the country needs you most, you turn your back on it and you're going somewhere else. It can't work. Now, can we get everything right? You cannot. If you woke up every morning and you did everything right, you could learn absolutely nothing. And this is novel. That's what it's called, novel coronavirus. Everything that comes with it is novel, which means that we have to go through a learning process. Hard or soft, you've got to go through it. And some of the people that are talking, I mean, sometimes I listen to the radio programs. You go online, I see somebody arguing about the price too high for people to come here. But what value do you put on yourself and what you have to offer? Now you can tell me that this is too expensive, but you can run down by the U.S. Embassy and pay whatever it takes to get a visa to go to America. What are you talking about? Somebody else put a value on you coming to their country. You're good to pay that. But now you put a value on somebody coming to yours, you got a problem with it. Well, something got to be wrong. And real wrong. And I would ask the minister responsible for education to look at it again. Because something going wrong. I can't say that education failing people now. But it looks like people failing education. Because the things that I'm reading and the things that I'm hearing make absolutely no sense to me at all. A lot of it. How? Someone had to explain to me. Maybe as my grandmother used to say, this is high science, too high for me. But how can you look at a program like this? Nobody else in the world came up with it. We came up with it. People will follow. People will try. But at the end of the day, that is the nature of life. Anybody could do anything they feel like, but nobody can do it like you. And competition is healthy. So this whole notion that all of a sudden I must drop my prices and I must change everything because somebody else next door decide to do something, it's a madness. At the end of the day, there's only one Barbados. You can talk what you like. The experience that you are going to get on this island is second to none. Second to none. And if we don't believe it, but who else is going to believe it? So we've got to talk. We've got to walk the walk, talk the talk, and open our doors to welcome the multitude of people who are coming. But who would not want to be out of a city with all the barrier and all the other things that they got to deal with to come to a paradise like this? But you know how many people dream of coming to Barbados? Some people who would probably have been planning to have here as their vacation spot for years. But now in this particular dispensation, they got a chance to come and work and still enjoy it. But what better place can you think of? And if I've traveled extensively, but what better place you could think of? I always remember when I was a child growing up, they tell me Acapulco is this and Acapulco is the next. And all the time I was a young boy and I dreaming about going to Acapulco. And then when I got to Acapulco myself, you would pick up my bottom leg off the ground. Because I couldn't believe that this is what people were talking about. It gave me a better sense of what I left at home. So I just wanted to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to bring some semblance of reason to some of the things that I've been reading and some of the things that I've been hearing. Because, like the leader of the opposition, I just hear a lot of things on the road too, but I don't come in here to talk about them. You understand? I hear a lot of things on the road too. I hear a lot of things about parties joining together, all kind of things I hear, but I don't come in here to talk about them for what? His hearsay has no value. But every time the leader of the opposition opens his mouth, he says, I heard in this place, and I heard in the next place, and I heard, and you know, I heard also that when you see people talking things like that, it's really them talking and nobody else. It's really them talking. And that sometimes if you got people who continue to talk about things that they heard and there's nobody else there talking with them, but I will say no more. So I support this. I know that it is a novel approach to getting people on island. I know that it is going to work. I don't have to question that. I know it is going to work. And I can also see it as a precursor for the winter season. Because when people come on this island, and you have to deal with them in what would be traditionally a low period, imagine when things start to pick back up. We would have gotten all the kinks out of the armor, and we will be able to give those persons who usually come, or new people coming, during the winter season, a much better experience. And so I can see all the benefits of this. And so with those very few words, Mr. Speaker, I am obliged to you.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to wrap up this debate. I am pleased that it has attracted so much attention. It shouldn't surprise any of us because within 2 weeks of us making our preliminary announcement, Antigua and Barbuda made their own announcement for an identical visa arrangement, but theirs for 2 years. And only in the last week or so, Bermuda has also made a similar announcement. In substance, the same thing. And it will not surprise me, sir, at all to see that many other jurisdictions that have been able to combat the virulent spread of COVID and that also have other attributes making them attractive. It wouldn't surprise me, sir, to see more and more domiciles following suit. Now, of course, it has always been said that follow pattern kill Cadogan. But the reality is that when in the international arena, it appears to a competing country that another country has hit on a solution or a novel idea, an approach or a mechanism that might be employed, those foreign states have never failed to follow the leader. I am pleased, Mr. Speaker, that in this regard, Barbados has well and truly led the world. Mr. Speaker, I believe that Barbadians support this initiative. I believe that Barbadians support this initiative because I think the figure is full 20,000 of them are employed in the tourism sector. And if that figure is at all correct, Mr. Speaker, it demonstrates to me a mature Barbadian citizenry that recognizes that tourists are important to our economy. It tells me, sir, that the average Barbadian has an appreciation of what it means to have 20 or 30,000 individuals being, waiting for unemployment checks. It tells me, sir, that COVID, as pernicious an illness as it is, has caused us to look inwards and to recognize that we have to think outside of the box. I don't think that there's been any pushback from any part of the Barbadian public, save and except from the leader of the opposition. And I'm sure that when this bill reaches the Senate, the senators that are appointed by him will voice the same concerns. But I'm fully expecting that the other senators, the independent senators, will find merit in what we're doing, sir. You know, Mr. Speaker, the first thing that we have to acknowledge is that in times of crisis or near crisis, hope is not a good option. You cannot hope your way out of a problem. So we could stand here and we could hope for vaccination. We could hope that things turn around. We can hope that somebody will smile on us and Barbados will receive some wonderful beneficence. We could hope all of those things, sir. But for this Barbados Labour Party, as valued a thing as hope and optimism is, we value much greater a spirit of doing and action. Now, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the leader of the opposition would have liked us to sit back and to stay on the boat as it is buffeted from side to side and follow what the rest of the world has been doing. I believe too, sir, that he would in fact have liked us to have done nothing. You know, sir, the Constitution provides for those instances where we have to consult. We have to consult the Leader of the Opposition when appointing judges. We have to consult the Leader of the Opposition on several things. I am so glad, sir, that we are not bound to consult with the Leader of the Opposition on this issue, because he would have had us do nothing. He spoke, the Leader of the Opposition spoke at length. He dragged up every duppy, every ghost, every specter, everything to try and scare the Barbadian public into rejecting this. The Leader of the Opposition talked about us accepting people without discrimination. He's never once told us what his position is on the issue, you know. Never told us what his position is on the issue. He's a man of the cloth. He's a man of the good book. And they believe that there are certain tenets, there are certain things in that book that speak to what we're doing. I believe so. I can't exactly point him to them. But that is my failing, sir. But having been immersed in it long enough, I believe, sir, that the good book would be the first place that a man of the cloth would look when trying to find a compass in this issue. But instead, the Leader of the Opposition chooses to carry on and on about no discrimination, almost as if to suggest, sir, that a modern Barbados should operate on that basis, that we should discriminate against individuals. Now, I don't know what he thinks we have up our sleeves. I don't know what the Leader of the Opposition has up his sleeves. But I can tell you that I know that the Leader of the Opposition was responsible for the Immigration Department when he used to be on this side and when he was Parliamentary Secretary or Minister of State? Parliamentary Secretary. The immigration files pass his desk. And I defy him to stand up in here and defend his stewardship at that time and tell us whether he discriminated against anybody because of who he felt they were married to or not married to, or whether he felt they should have been married or should have called it a marriage or anything of the sort. And you know, he had the opposition. He had the opportunity because he could have said, and I stand on a matter of principle, having exercised the powers of this office. Not a word, sir. But all kinds of veiled references, all kinds of things said but not said. Things that he would like to say but perhaps doesn't have the courage to say. We have the courage, though. And we have the courage to do. And Mr. Speaker, if there's one thing that the people of Barbados can be sure of, is that in every exercise by us of the awesome power that we have been given, we have always tried to do our best for the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, remember, he didn't mention the mafia, but he talked about money laundering. The Honorable Leader of the Opposition said, we don't ask for a source of funds. I remind you, sir, that that gentleman was in charge of immigration. And he probably won't have an opportunity to speak in this debate again. But on the basis that he was in charge of the Immigration Department for many a year, one would assume that he was familiar in some slight way with the practices of the Immigration Department. I think that's a fair assumption. And that he would have been familiar with the Immigration Act. And the forms which are part of our law and which are used by the Immigration Department. So I wonder if the member would cast his mind back and consider whether, with our citizenship applications, anybody has to declare source of funds. The answer is no, sir. I wonder if the honourable member would cast his mind back and inquire, does anybody have to demonstrate a source of funds when applying for residency? I'll save him the trouble, sir. The answer to that is no as well. Sir, in all of the various categories that Barbadians have determined we would welcome people under from the time of independence, sir, not in a single one, and those are permanent arrangements, would you see any reference to source of funds? They ask that you say whether you can support yourself. But nowhere do they ask for source of funds. So perhaps the leader of the opposition can ask his senators when this bill gets there tomorrow, if they could tell us on what basis you want to ask for a source of funds when somebody is coming here on a 1-year visa, but that it would be quite all right not to ask for source of funds when they're coming for 3 months, or 6 months, or 8 months, or when they're coming for 2 years on a work permit, or 3 years on a work permit, or on any other category. One wonders, sir, what is it about this 1-year visa that so frightens the leader of the opposition? What is it? I can't imagine. It represents an earnest commitment on the part of an administration to turn around this economy in a way that is viable. If the member has a problem with tourism, he should say so. But I don't imagine that could be it. This is an opportunity for us to have individuals coming to Barbados and experiencing for a period of a year that which the tourism ministry generally gets them to come to Barbados and do for 2 or 3 weeks. They're coming to Barbados to enjoy for a year that which the Ministry of Industry and International Business tries to get them to come here and do on a long-term basis. We have asked that they prove to us that they earn $100,000 a year. I suspect, as the member for St. James North said, that the leader of the opposition honestly didn't read the bill. Because it is clear to me that, and I believe Hanson will bear it out, his reference to $100,000 suggested that we, in our statute and forms, ask the person to prove that they have $100,000. In fact, I think those were his words. We're not asking boy to prove that they have $100,000. We want you to establish that you either are self-employed or are in a job which will earn you at least 100,000 Barbados dollars, because we recognize that if we want you to come and stay here for a year, one assumes, we are entitled to assume, in fact, we're entitled to more than assume. We're entitled to ask you, are you able to support yourself for a year? Whether it is in a rental of a home or checking into a hotel. Eating food, whether you're going to cook for yourself or whether you're going to eat at Chefette or at any of the finer establishments. Mr. Speaker, there's a good reason why people are following this model, because they recognize that it is an opportunity to turn short-term tourism into long stay, into perhaps super long stay visitors, but it is also an opportunity for us to find the silver lining of this illness. Now, sir, people have asked why the fees got to be so high. They've pointed out that Bermuda fee is $283 US. Why ours got to be $2,000 and $3,000? So, well, there's a cost. There's a cost to Barbados of putting things in place. There's a cost to Barbados of maintaining a system which protects the visitor and which also protects Barbados. We are not interested in how to do it on the cheap. We're not interested in whether we could do it for $50 less than Bermuda. They know why they have chosen that price point. The hurricane season has started, and I don't think there's a year that goes by that Bermuda doesn't get hit with 1 or 2 storms or 1 or 2 hurricanes. Every year on year on year on year. And at certain times of the year, Bermuda gets real, real cold. And is a little bit inhospitable. Now, sir, there's no point us trying to compare apples with oranges. Bermuda is Bermuda. They have their arrangement. Barbados is Barbados. We chose an arrangement that we feel satisfies our fiscal needs. And let's get this clear. These fees are to cover administrative costs. The government of Barbados is not trying to make money off of these visa fees. We're not. You know who we want to make the money? I believe the member for St. James North pointed it out. We want the hoteliers to make the money. We want the hoteliers to be able to re-employ their maids and their gardeners and their managers and their chefs. And we want them to be able to pay fees to their accountants and hire the musicians to play Yellow Bird at night in the bar. We want to be able to buy chicken from the chicken producers and potatoes from the potato farmers and cucumbers and limes. That's who we want to get the opportunities here. Not $2,000 to come into government coffers. That is what is required by us to be able to handle the process. But we want to provide a sustainable opportunity for Barbadians to get put back to work. I wonder why that would scare the leader of the opposition so much. Why? I frankly had thought that he would have come in to this chamber, and while I don't expect him to praise anything that we do, he never does, but I would have expected him to have been able to say, you know, this bill represents a commitment that we share. And you know, sir, you know what's disappointing? Before the COVID crisis hit Barbados, we had a consultation at the Hilton. We invited the leader of the opposition, made sure he had a seat at the table, front row. And this is not new, because we did the same thing when we gave him and others the benefit of a national security briefing. Okay? So we take consulting seriously. But we brought him into the picture at an early stage. We pointed, the hoteliers did a presentation on how their sorry I don't have the language. Remember, Mr. Peter might help me, how their room nights, their bookings had dropped. What was the fancy term for that? Well, let me stick to the word I got. You can only confuse me now. Sir, if I talk about pace, we can talk about cricket. So the occupancy levels and their forward bookings had dropped. That's more or less accurate. Thank you. I did chair the BTA for sure. And I listened. So the hoteliers back then were saying that the bookings, that they had lost bookings. People were not bothering to come anymore. People were canceling the bookings. And that they didn't know where the next booking was coming from. The individuals, the economists in the Ministry of Finance spoke to that same gathering about the economic impact. The consultant, who was that, the IMF? Kenneth, Dr. Greenidge, did a presentation to show what would likely be the fallout if COVID hit us, if it wasn't so bad and if it was bad. We brought the leader of the opposition in at all these stages. And I believe, if I'm not incorrect, that we had another meeting on the same issue, and I think he was invited to that one as well at the gymnasium. So we've tried to share with the leader of the opposition and the members for the Democratic Labour Party all of the information that we have. Unlike the last 10 years, unlike the 10 years before we came to power, when the last administration shared nothing. Information was like gold. So they couldn't afford to share it with us because we would take it and run with it and do something wrong. We didn't have that perspective. We shared our information with leader of the opposition so that everything he knew, we knew. Everything that we knew, he knew. And faced with all that information, sir, he could still come in here and try to scare Barbadians into rejecting this bill. Sir, I'm sure that the member believes that that is what an opposition should do. and therefore he's done it in good faith. I want to ask Barbadians, though, to disassociate themselves with that approach. Without solid management, this economy would have faltered in a way that would see us, sir, losing all of our hard-fought gains. We've managed to hold on, but we are now in that position where the time has come to act, and to act quickly. The member seems to have a problem with doing things quickly. You know, I wonder if he ever went to the hospital and had to sit down and wait, and wait, and wait. In those circumstances, who wouldn't want a speedy solution to their injury? Who wouldn't want a speedy solution to the agony that they were facing? Barbados needs to have a speedy solution, and if he did not hear, I will remind him, this visa is to come into force on the 1st of August. On the 1st of August, sir. So we do not and did not have the luxury of having this languish. It is not a big bill, sir. It is only, I believe it is 6 or 7 clauses. It is 9 clauses, sir. Can't take long to read. Can't take long to digest. So I don't know what about it is that he feels we should have taken an extra 10 weeks to settle. I am proud that we've been able to get this done in this quick period of time. I'm proud, sir, that we are at the front of the pack and that other people are following us, sir. I am proud that every day on BBC, on CNN, on The Voice, all over international media, I'm proud that people are saying, come to Barbados to work. Mr. Speaker, Barbadians don't have anything to fear from this bill. Barbadians don't have anything to fear from anybody